Hello.
Hello! We're here! We're only 4 minutes late. That's like a whole big thing. That's
The
really
record.
So only 3 of us.
Yeah, there is only 3 of us. We were gonna have Red and Kelly joining the 3 of us, but Red is sick, and Kelly, her tree in her front yard fell. What the heck? So it's like they're trying to figure out what's happening there. So yeah, it'll just be us. I'm Cassie from Miss Sassy Cassie.
I'm Sierra from Sierra Reads. I don't know what order we're in.
Yeah, this is fine.
And I'm Emma from Emma Books.
Perfect. And today we're going to be talking about Me Before You by Jojo Moyes that I don't have.
Ooh.
Back there.
Aw, you just played it all nice for the live show.
Ooh. It was already there, actually.
Isn't that perfect?
Do we want to talk about our general thoughts and rating?
Is
Sure.
the Q&A app open first?
Yes, the Q&A app is open. You can also tweet us at the Bibliothon or our individual Twitter handles, which are all. Do we want to say them? Mine is Miss Sassy Cassie.
Mine is Emma Books.
Oh, our Twitter? handle?
Yeah.
I don't actually know what mine is.
There's a Sierra Reads with an underscore.
That.
That. So yeah.
Someone stole Sierra Reads. Why?
Okay, so I don't remember what I rated it, so somebody else go.
I don't remember either, but I think it was like a 4, but my feelings have changed a lot since
Yeah.
I originally read it.
Go ahead, Emma.
Is it like 4.5, I think?
I originally rated it a 4, and then my rating changed to a 2.
Oh, wow.
God.
Yeah, but we'll get into why that happened, because it was a very enjoyable story, and it's super cute and sweet, and man, it made me cry a lot. And then after reading it, I found out a lot of things, and then I didn't like it as much.
Me too. Me too.
So we should definitely warn for spoilers. So if you haven't read Me Before You, then you maybe don't want to watch this if you don't want to be spoiled. And then, are we going to talk about the movie? Have you guys both seen it?
We can talk about the movie. I'm good with that.
We should
We'll
talk
probably
about
talk
it at the end in case people haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll probably talk about the movie eventually, but we'll warn before we start talking about it, in case somebody hasn't seen it. So, who was your favorite character?
Ooh, who was my favorite character? I have to think about that.
I
I think I
know.
like Will the most personally.
Me too.
Who?
Will.
Oh, that's what I thought, but it
Although
wasn't.
I also really liked the friend, the nurse guy. Crap, what was his name?
Ethan!
Yeah. I liked his Australian accent. I really liked what's-her-face, Louisa. I liked him a lot. Oh, I liked Will too. He actually reminded me of Will Herondale.
I can see why you'd say that.
Oh,
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I wasn't the biggest fan of Louisa in the books. I just feel like I didn't really connect with her because I told you guys I had a really, really hard time in the beginning of the book just because I don't read adult and I can't connect to anything of Louisa. And so it was really, really hard for me to resonate with her like I can with most of the book characters I read. But the movie is what made me fall in love with her, and I started to understand by visually seeing her. I know we're not really talking about the movie, but it wasn't a spoiler. But now that I've seen the movie, I'm much more understand her mannerisms and her train of thought and everything like that, just because it was easier for me to see than just to imagine. So I definitely, she's really, really grown on me as a character.
I really like her character. I think she's great.
I agree.
I love how eccentric her clothing choices are.
Right? I want her entire wardrobe.
I wish I could pull off everything she wears.
I love that she was awkward. I just
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
right? And she wasn't, she was a little chunky too, right? She was pretty
Yeah.
curvy, which I like as well.
That's cute.
I definitely think when it comes to diverse main characters, she doesn't necessarily fit into a, stereotypical protagonist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think she has a lot of nice quirks, and it was really interesting to see.
She was definitely an interesting character. Oh, I'm echoing.
I think you're fine. I didn't hear anything.
Oh, okay. I think she's an interesting character, obviously, because there's so much background as to why she dresses the way she does. Not just because that's the style she likes, but because of what had happened to her in the past. And I just think it's interesting.
I also thought that was
I
a really
agree.
good way to cope with it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, I thought, you know, I can understand dressing like more modestly and stuff after that. I know that that's pretty common amongst victims of sexual assault, but I thought it was interesting that she turned it into like more of her personality and went the more eccentric route rather than basic and like not so stand outish. You know what I mean?
Right.
I thought it was cool
I
that
agree.
took the opportunity and ran with it.
What did we think about boyfriend? Shit, what's his name? Peter? Peter? That is
I hate him. Yeah, I think
I
that's
hate
Patrick.
him. Patrick. Okay.
Yeah.
He was awful. Like, he didn't care about her at all whatsoever. He just wanted her as his little, like, running friend. Time me as I run. That's it.
What was like the explanation behind their relationship? Was that ever explained?
I think he was chunky when they first met.
Yeah, originally he wasn't into running and stuff, and like she like talks about how they used to hang out and like sit around and eat, like gorge themselves and watch movies or TV or something and like entertainment. And then at one point he got into running and then became a personal trainer and blah blah blah. And it was just like completely different than what she wanted.
Yeah. Their relationship just felt so much like those people that stay together for the sake of history. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like I can't stand when people have no reason to be together other than they've been together for such a long time. It's just like so unfortunate to read about and just like see happen in real life. And I thought they were like horrific together. Like I don't know why they.
Yeah, and like it was very frustrating to read like her moving in with him and stuff. Like, your relationship is not working. Why are you moving? Ah. Like why? Yeah, I was not that. I think that part of it was my favorite as far as like the antagonist idea of this story. Like that was my favorite part to read about, even though it made me the most angry. But like.
I think Trina made me more angry. The sister?
I hated Trina too.
Like, she fucking pissed me off every single page she was on. I was like, get off. Get out.
It's funny that you say that because for me, I felt like the one thing that annoyed me about Louisa the most was her reaction and relationship with Trina. I'm just like, can you get over yourself just a little bit also, though? Because, like, obviously Trina was in the wrong, too, and she's, like, a spoiled little brat. But also, Louisa needs to calm down a little bit.
No, I agree. I just think that Trina wasn't unnecessarily, like, too hardcore of a bitch just because she decided to have a child way too fucking early in life.
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
I think Trina was really insensitive to her family situation. You know, like
for sure.
Louisa was the one who had to do all the work. Louisa had to suffer the smaller room, and then when Trina, I don't know, maybe it's just because if I was in Trina's position, I wouldn't abandon my family, kind of like she did.
Right.
And so maybe that's why like it's so hard for me to resonate with her actions, but I couldn't stand her.
Yeah, I think also the family was not great. Like, her family just wasn't my favorite. Like, she doesn't have to take care of you guys. Like, you're grown-ass adults. Like, you can fucking take care of yourself. Like, I understand, like, people's thoughts on, like, wanting to help take care of their families and always put their families first and whatnot. I'm totally like that too. But if my freaking parents were just sitting on their ass and not doing anything and just expecting me to pay every single bill, I could be like, can you fucking go to a job interview or something? I mean, damn.
Phantom and Books actually asked, how did you guys feel about the family dynamic?
Oh,
What I thought was
that was it.
What I thought was really interesting about the book is that I feel like we don't see financial instability a lot. I feel like money in families is not something that's talked about very often, unless they're talking
Megan is here.
Megan from Megan
Hello.
Frequent with us.
Yay.
Hi, Megan.
Hi. We're currently talking about family dynamics. Sierra, you're echoey.
Let me grab my headphones.
Someone needs headphones.
Do I have headphones? Hold on. Let me see if I have headphones, and I'll explain another thing. So I feel like it was interesting to read about a family that was struggling so much with money, just because that is something a lot of people can resonate with, and I just feel like it's a topic that's just not mentioned. You know what I mean? Like, you know, when a character is really rich, all they talk about is how rich they are.
Right.
But when it comes to characters that are struggling a little bit, like, it's just like if they're middle class or lower than middle, sometimes if they're lower than middle class, but I just feel like money isn't something that's talked about a lot. And so I thought it was interesting to see a family struggling, but I just don't like how the family dealt with it. Like, I don't think Louisa should have been, you know, responsible for everyone.
I agree.
Yeah, it was interesting to
We're echoing so hard.
Oh, I have them in my lap. What am I doing? I'm a mess. I'm a real mess. Did anyone else want to give their input on the family?
I'm waiting for echo.
I'm sorry. Is this better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so I did like that she included all the stuff about like going to the job interview, like the job thing, like where she went
job
to the
center where like they
Yes.
set her up with a bunch of jobs. I thought that was weird. Do we have that here in America?
Yeah.
We do?
Yeah.
We don't
I
have
don't
it
know
in
if it's a
Longport.
place that like
Longport
they
is 5 years behind where I live. Like, I swear we have nothing that anyone else does. Anyway.
I don't know how many places are actually there for you to go in. I know for a fact it's a thing in England because I've seen it in multiple British shows. But there are people that you can go to that will help you find a job, whether it's online or not. I know that there are like certain companies that do help you job search, but I know it's super prominent in England.
Interesting. Yeah, I liked it. I liked learning about it, I guess.
Yeah.
Although
Yeah, it was different.
is fact. We should talk about that. But
Yeah.
Megan,
That should come later. There's so much more story we need to talk
okay. Megan needs to give us her general a rating.
Oh, I had ended up giving it a 5 out of 5 stars. I really liked it. I read it a while ago, so I'm trying to like think of things.
Yeah.
But I remember that the main thing that I really, really enjoyed about it is I'm a nursing student, and I love the aspects that they included in that, and I liked that it was mostly accurate. So I thought that it was really interesting that they had that, because that's not really in books a lot.
I'm assuming you like Nathan.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so
does anyone have any like favorite scenes
Moments.
of the book? Yeah.
Yeah, holiday.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
so good at it.
The whole thing. It was so cute. I just love it.
I still like the and they had it in the movie as well, but him asking her to stay, and she's telling the story about the bumblebee tights. I still just love
Oh,
that.
so cute. That was another really, really great scene.
Yeah, her birthday.
Her
I love the birthday.
So cute.
I also really loved this scene. This is like by far my favorite like line from the book and everything is when they come back from the concert and they're just sitting in the van and Louisa's like, okay, let's get out or whatever, and Will is like, no, I just want to stay. Like for once, I just want to be a man who just got back from a concert with a girl in a red dress. Like I don't know why, but that scene
It's so
like
cute.
makes me
It's
so
so cute.
emotional. I feel like it's such a good example of how Will is like struggling to hold on to like any ounce of normalcy in his life, and I don't know if it was like intended to represent that, but just like as soon as I read it, I was like, wow, like that like really, really shows like how hard it must be for him to like have to make this crazy adjustment and like not be able to do things like this for the past 2 years.
Yeah, totally.
My favorite line was at the concert when she bites off his tag and then says something along the lines of, good thing it wasn't in your pants.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
It's not in the movie. She says it differently. She says something like, she says the other line where she said something about, what, I'm sure they've all seen a girl, like,
Nipping at a guy's neck.
yeah, and then she doesn't say the other part, which is sad, because that was part of my favorite.
Louisa was just fun.
Yeah.
And her style, every time they described what she was wearing, I was just like, she seems like she's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Although, even though her outfits are so, like, extraordinary, she's, like, really shy.
Yeah.
She doesn't, like, go out and do stuff at all. She just, like, keeps to herself.
I agree. I think I really liked their dynamic. Like, I thought that Louisa and Will had, like, a really, really interesting dynamic just because I feel like, for the most part, they were so opposite.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, her whole life has been about, like, staying home and, you know, just going through the motions, and before his accident, Will was, like, an adrenaline junkie, and I just thought, like, the way that those two personalities came together was done really well.
Although it made me so sad when he told her, like, straight up, like, if I wasn't in this wheelchair, we never would have crossed paths.
Yeah, that makes it sad.
And I'm like, that's so mean, but it's so true. And, like, it just makes me feel sad because, like, I think they're great together even though they shouldn't have much time together. Piece of shit.
I like that he told her straight up, too, about everything, though.
Yeah.
He told her straight up that, like, you need to go do things because you can do these things, and you need to go have fun and live your life.
Although I feel so sad for her when she just found out that, like, she was basically there to keep him happy so he wouldn't kill himself.
Yeah.
And, like, when she found out, and she's like, how the hell do I, like, carry that weight on my shoulders? Like, that's just so crazy. Like, and for his parents to just, like, be like, yeah, take care of it. Like, oh my god, I can't even imagine doing that.
Are you talking about hiring Louisa to make her happy again? I mean, make him happy again?
When she found out that that's what she was hired for.
Ugh. It's also just frustrating because, like, why didn't you hire someone like a therapist?
Yeah, the whole, like, I remember, I told you guys, like, I really wasn't feeling the beginning of this book, and I just remember reading that interview, I was like, why on earth is this girl getting this job? Like, she first to the interview, she has no qualifications, it was just, like, it was so preposterous to me, and it was, like, one of those, like, super unrealistic parts of contemporary that, like, I hate. Like, it was like, this makes no sense.
Reasons I don't like contemporary.
It also took Louisa way longer to figure out. Like, I had a feeling that was why she got hired way before she figured it out.
Yeah.
And listening to the conversation. What?
She's kind of a fool, isn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah, like how did you not at least have an idea that might be because she's like literally sitting there saying like I was literally hired to just sit here, and I'm like, yeah, you were hired to just sit there, like, yes. Why are you confused? I don't understand. It was very frustrating. But I feel like that a lot of times when I read contemporary, so it's one of those things where I have to like suspend my disbelief for a minute in order to enjoy the book.
My life.
I agree.
Does anyone have any questions? Anyone watching?
Oh, I haven't had the Q&A bit open. Let me open that.
Phantom and Books asked, or she didn't ask, she said, I would have loved a flashback to see how Nathan met and dealt with Will.
I would have loved more of Will's like point of view in general.
Me too.
Yeah, especially because that one time that we did get it felt really out of place.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. I totally agree. Didn't we get Camilla's point of view at one point too?
Yeah.
That was weird to me too. I didn't like the perspectives. I thought that it should have been more consistent.
Yeah.
But I always have a problem with multiple perspectives if they aren't done consistently, so like that's not a shocker. Oh my god, Kelly joined!
Oh my god! Hey, oh my god,
how's your house?
It is fine. We killed somebody to come cut the tree down, so I don't want
Okay, that's good.
Kelly, what did you give me before you? What rating?
I gave it a 5 out of 5. I loved it. It's one of my favorite books I've read this year.
Oh my god.
No surprise. No surprise.
Do you have a
Definitely right
favorite
up my alley.
scene?
Do I have a favorite theme?
Scene.
Honestly, probably, even though it like breaks my entire existence, the scene where they go on the little mini vacation right before.
Me too.
That I just loved it so much. It was so cute.
Yeah.
Oh,
go ahead, Emma.
no, I'm trying to think. I had a question that I wanted to talk about, but I don't remember what it was. So whatever you were going to say, go for it.
I forgot already. I wanted to say something about the horse scene because I was like cracking up laughing even though obviously it's not a good scene. Like it's sad, but like I was dying laughing because like his fucking wheelchair was stuck in the mud and obviously that's so sad. But like I was just laughing because he's just like sitting there like what the fuck is my life right now and she's trying so hard to make him happy, and he's just chilling in the mud. Like, I hate my life. I'm like,
Well, even his reaction, like when he's sitting at the race, was hilarious.
Yeah, and he hates horses.
I also was reading that scene going, why would you, isn't there a handicapped area? Like, isn't there a spot? And then they leave and they find it, and I'm like, if you had looked farther, then you would have figured that out. Like, why didn't you think about that?
Because she's not handicapped.
Like, but like, I mean, I haven't had anyone in my family where I needed one of those things, but I know that they exist. Like the you know what I'm talking about? The card that you put on your windshield wiper or whatever?
Yeah, but this
your
is
mirror.
back to when I said earlier that Louise is kind of a fool.
She is a fool.
Which she just doesn't have any life experience. It's not like she's just dumb. It's just she just doesn't do anything, so she doesn't have any experience in life at all whatsoever, which is why she doesn't freaking know anything. Yeah, that's how I feel about it.
She was definitely a weird person to be thrown into that situation.
Oh, yeah.
I remember what my question was. I don't know if we want to, like, skip around and stuff, but I really want to know your thoughts on the ending.
I was going to ask that.
Okay.
Well, Phantoms in book just asked in the Q&A something pretty goes along with that pretty much.
Yeah. She asked, did you feel like your opinion of the book would have changed if Will had decided to live? And then we can also include just what were your thoughts in general about the ending.
Yeah.
Who wants to go first? I'll go first because I know what I'm going to say. I was really, really pissed off at the ending just because I feel like this whole book was leading up to this love story. And I don't consider this a romance book. Like, I don't know what I would consider it, but I feel like the romance is not really developed until like the very, very end of it. I really liked their dynamic and everything, but I think people overhype the love story just because like there's no substance of it until the end. Like they don't talk about it until the very end, and I was really hoping that he would change his mind and then we would have this happily ever after for them. And I just feel like the whole book was setting up for a happily ever after, and it didn't come. And I understand had he decided to live, it would have been like the able-bodied person saved the disabled person, which I think is totally wrong. I just really wish the author had found a way to make it so it wasn't like that and had made it very clear that it had nothing to do with Louisa. But, you know, maybe they went like skydiving. He was like, wow, I can actually do this shit. Like, I'm not going to let this, you know, stop me from living my life. I think there was a way that it could have been written without making it seem like Louisa saved him. I just was really disappointed that, like, all of this was building up to their romance and, like, it never got a chance to really, you know.
Yeah, I agree. I was really pissed at the end, and the more I think about it, like, the first scene that we even meet Will, I guess it's kind of, he just totally hates his life the entire time. The only time he's happy is when she's around, which, granted, if he had stuck around, she would have as well, or at least that's what we all hope for. But he just decided to take the easy way out, and I just think it's frustrating. Again, going back to the parents not getting him a therapist, I don't understand why there couldn't have been another... I'm just frustrated. And I'm also really frustrated at the fact that there's a second book. Like, what can even happen in that?
I know, right?
Like, no, I don't... I'm frustrated.
I have lots of feelings. One is that I was very frustrated the entire time because why was he not seeing a psychologist or what's the other one? Psychiatrist.
Psychiatrist, yeah.
Why was he not seeing one of, like, we talk about his doctor visits and we talk about all that thing, but he wasn't seeing either one of those options at all? Like, what?
When it's really
so frustrated.
I know for a fact that when you're admitted to the hospital under, like, he tried to kill himself. Like, he attempted suicide. You have to go to a therapist. Like, you have to. So my only only logical explanation that is like a really like a throwaway, like, oh, a second afterthought as to what this explanation would be, is that he probably went and finished what he was supposed to and refused to go anymore. That's the only thing I can think of, but it's not a good enough reason for him to stop seeing a therapist.
I agree. I agree with that.
I'm so frustrated about that. My other thing that I was going to say is that, okay, so it was an interesting dynamic that she put in here, because you got all of this like able and disabled body stuff that's going on, and then you have the other controversy that she wrote about, which was the fact that you have a right to die. And like, there's a part of me that found it really fascinating and controversial and a really cool topic and a really important topic to talk about, the fact that if Will wants to die, he has a right to choose to do so. And like that whole, what is the place called? I don't remember, but like the fact that he actively chose to go in there, and it's physician-assisted suicide. Like, that's really important. I just feel like in the situation he should have been seeing a fucking therapist. I'm so irritated.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm also pretty sure if you do that, you have to see a therapist as well, and it has to not be, like, you can't do it for mental illness reasons. Like, it has to be completely, like, you can't euthanize yourself because of depression. Like, you can't. It doesn't happen that way. You get rejected.
At least not in America, at least. I don't know exactly what the laws are in England.
Sweden.
But, like, in Sweden.
Or Switzerland. It was in Switzerland that he went.
It's just so frustrated. Why wasn't he seeing a therapist? Okay.
Kathy, I feel like conflicted how you do too, with the why is he not seeing the psychiatrist and have some kind of therapist in that type of sense, and then I go to that sense that you were saying, like, he has that right if he wanted to, because I just tried to, I don't know, I got upset with the ending, but the first thing that came to my mind was like, if that had happened to me, because I am the same, I don't know, I'm not the same exact person as Will Trainer, but I am a very active person, and I like to do a lot of fun and crazy things, and if I put myself in that situation, I know how, like, miserable I would have been in that type of sense, and it's not to say that, like, I don't know, it's different if you were born with those type of things, and then if you kind of come into them from an accident, already having been able to do things previously. It's a really touchy, controversial.
I agree.
I think it's just from person to person, and maybe if we got Will's point of view, it would have, I don't know, I just wanted more of Will's point of view.
I think this is a story that should have been written from Will's point of view.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, everyone makes the argument that it's Louise's story and not Will's, but I feel like this topic is too severe and sensitive to not at least split perspectives. And I just think it was, you know, when everyone's talking about misrepresentation of disabled people, I think at least having his perspective might have given her a little bit more credibility towards making an effort to making a better representation. You know what I mean? But it's like, if you didn't write it in his perspective, it's like you really didn't even try.
Yeah.
No.
That's what we should have got for a second book instead of After You.
Yeah. Oh my God! Why is it just the book from his perspective?
I'm annoyed. Stop. I'm so pissed.
Well, and it just further shows that, like, this really is an able-bodied book, because you made a sequel about her life after this guy died. It's all about how his death and his disability and all of the things that were happening to him affected her.
One more thing I wanted to talk about. The ending when she's in Paris, does that only take place like a couple of weeks after? Or is that like...
I think it takes place...
A couple months?
Yeah, it's like 6 weeks. She says it in weeks, but it's over a month.
Okay, because I remember being like, how is she... Like, if someone that close to me died of whatever reason, like, I would not be okay. Like, I just feel like the ending... when she was reading the letter, it didn't seem like her grief was as severe as I would have expected it to be after going through all of that.
Yeah.
She seemed like a little, maybe it's just the way I interpreted it, maybe like I missed something, but the way that she seemed, like her mentality in Paris just like did not align with what I thought somebody in that stage of grief would be feeling.
I'm so frustrated at the fact that he made her go to Switzerland to be there for it. Like, I would not want to be there for that. Like, you have been in my life for 6 months now, and like things are great, and you're deciding that things aren't actually as great as I think they are. So you're just gonna leave and make me experience that to a higher level than I would like to. I was so pissed. I'm sorry.
But I feel conflicted from y'all too on the end.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Because I like the end to a degree. I felt like it needed to happen that way. Like it didn't need to be predictable in the fact that he does decide to live. But then I'm also in the same like sense of the psychologist situations are really annoying because why wasn't he seeing anybody?
Right.
But I don't know if y'all read the parts where she talks about why she wrote this book and how she actually has family members who are disabled in this way, and she has a family friend who did this to himself and stuff. But I felt like reading that part made me understand like why she did things the way she did a little bit more. And also we have somebody, I think she lives in Alabama, who's 14 and she's deciding to do the same thing that he did. And like our entire state is basically rebelling against her right now and trying to make her change her mind. But she doesn't want to. And she literally is going through the exact same situation. She can't move anything from her neck down. She has no movement in her hands at all. And she said that she's always in so much pain all the time. She doesn't want to live. She doesn't want to be here at all. And so it's like, it really is such a controversial situation because I think about if I was in that situation, would I want to do that to myself, even if my situation had changed, you know?
Yeah.
After
I said
knowing
she's
how it
14?
Yeah, she's 14.
Is she? I don't know how much you know the extent of her her like planning with it, but I don't know where she's planning on going for it, but I'm pretty sure you need to be 18 to do that too.
Well, what she's planning on doing, and this is where the whole parent situation comes in. I'm like, what are y'all gonna do about this? She can't breathe on her own. She's planning on coming off of her oxygen.
Oh my
and doing it herself. Yeah. And it's
but
like,
how does everyone know about this? Like, how is it?
It's in our news right now. So I don't, because she wanted to go to one prom. She wanted to go to her final prom and then, or something like that, some kind of dance. And then after that dance is over, you know, after she gets to experience that joy, then end it like that. And so that's why it made our news and everything, is she's ending it with some kind of dance, and then she's going to make the decision of when, and she's not going to tell people exactly when it's going to happen.
It's fascinating.
But it's just, I'm like, what in the world? And I just wonder if she's read this book, if she's making her decision because she saw it happen in this book or something. It's crazy.
Well, and like legally you can choose, even at 14, you can choose to resist like life-sustaining support.
Yeah. Okay, so that's different.
Probably why.
Yeah.
Because it's not.
I just wanted to like throw in that like I know a lot of it we are taking like maybe they're wanting to do this because they're depressed or taking into account their emotions, but I like that Kelly was talking about that girl and saying that she can't breathe on her own.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And also got in more. We also got in Me Before You of Will getting pneumonia. That happens a lot to them, and that's something that's like it's very painful for them, and they're like burning up, like literally just burning up, and it's really painful. And they also a lot of times go into like respiratory distress all the time. They can go into respiratory failure, and there's those aspects I think maybe like you have to take into account too, because they really are in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
That they have to deal with, like for the rest of their life.
I was gonna say, yeah, like I remember just reading that scene just made me like uncomfortable and sad. Like that was one of the saddest moments in the book for me was when Will got pneumonia and just thinking about him going through that constantly. But I like that we have Megan here to like be like, this is how it is medically.
It's just like it's such it's a really controversial thing because I mean like we have to deal with it and talk about it, and I mean I go into patients' room and it was interesting for me to read this because I've been in patients' room where they've just like told me straight up like I don't want to live anymore, and you have to talk to them. You can't just stare at them. You have to say something, and so it was interesting to have this book and try to think more about how I need to interact with patients that I meet like that. So that's why I just really enjoyed it too.
That's so scary. I could never do what you do.
Oh, I have another question, but I don't remember what my question was. What a surprise. What was I gonna say?
We've got a couple things from Fandom and Books. Thanks,
As
Fandom and
always,
Books, for being
such a
awesome.
queen. Love her.
she wrote, being someone who has become disabled, I totally understood how Will felt, but it did seem ridiculous that he still decided to end his life, especially with how his and Lou's relationship developed. And then she also said, I think this was a while ago when we were talking about Will and Louisa's like ending thing, and we were talking about able-bodied stories, and she said ultimately the guy saves the girl. It takes Will to bring Lou out of her shell and open up to life, which is true. Like it is about Louisa. So like as far as Louisa's story goes, it's a good story. I think the only reason the controversy comes up is because like we took a person whose story doesn't get told really ever, or very rarely, a disabled body person, and we didn't tell his story. We used him to tell her story. So like
straight up definition of exploitation, yeah.
So it would be different if like, I mean, okay, so like at this point we get plenty of stories about girls and we get plenty of stories about guys in young adult. Like it's not really that big of a deal if the story is about a boy anymore, because we get stories about girls all the time, so we're not like lacking in that really. But we're lacking in plenty of other versions. We're lacking in like people of color stories. We're lacking in, you know, like disabled body stories. So like that's where the controversy comes up. It's because like it's not something you see, and so of course they took it and still didn't tell that story, even though they really easily could have. And by they, I mean the author.
I agree. What was I gonna say? Yeah, I wanted to know, how do you guys feel about like all the controversy that's like surrounding the book? Like, do you think it's justified? Do you agree?
Definitely.
Like, I know Sierra is like super pissed that like his thing isn't even real.
I just don't understand why the author didn't do her research beforehand. Like, I don't frustrated. Cassie knows more about it. She's watched more stuff about it than I do.
Okay, so my favorite review that I've read or watched about this book and this controversy was, oh god, I'm gonna say the YouTube name wrong now because I can't remember it, but it was this guy who just made a YouTube channel all together to make this entire review. Like, he has no other videos and no other anything.
Is he the disabled one?
Yeah.
I think he watched the same one, yeah.
It was such a unique way to do it, too, because he's basically talking to himself about the book. And so, like, there's one version of him that's like, oh, yeah, I'm reading this book. And the other guy is like, oh, you mean that one that's, like, really fucking awful? And then they start talking about it together. And basically, like, he's bringing up the fact that, like, every issue that Will is having, of course, is not a small issue. Like, yeah, when you have an accident like that, it can be really detrimental to your mental health. And so it makes sense that Will is really depressed. But, like, why isn't it being dealt with in any way, shape, or form other than Will choosing to die? Which, like, that's where that other controversy comes in, because, like, yeah, you do have a right to die if you really choose to, in my opinion. I think that that's important. But also, there was no mental health, like, oh, my God, I'm just going to get mad all over.
It's just back, again, to the psychiatrist thing, the why.
Yeah. And he also talks about how, like, the author talks about how, like, Paris is a really, like, there's the scene where Will says, like, I don't want to go to Paris and lose all the memories of me, like, being able to be that guy that I was. And then she also does her research, and Paris is, like, really awful for people in wheelchairs to get around. But, like, he states in his video, you mean that place we went to on our honeymoon? And it's, like, the easiest, most able to get around place for a person in a wheelchair. Like, it's, like, rated #1 in the world to get around in a wheelchair. So, like, what? And then, like, they choose to go to a beach instead. That's where they end up. They go to a beach. And he's like, that sounds awful. That sounds like it would have been a horrible experience for me and my wife if we had chosen to do that for our honeymoon. So, like, just, thanks.
Well, I think it's just a weird situation in general, because she's trying to, like, I can understand the controversy, because what she's doing is she's taken this theme that we've never really read in a book at all, and the situation with this main character, but she's making him depressed, making him hate life, making him not want to just live at all, and we have to kind of take this entirely new theme and deal with this character hating his entire existence, but loving the other main character and wanting her to be happy and him to be happy. Like, it's just the entire situation is so controversial, and you just don't know how to feel about the book. And everybody, I didn't even like watch reviews because it's just, I don't like controversy, and I don't know how to deal with it very well. And so I'm like, I just can't. I'm just gonna like read this book, enjoy it the way that I enjoy things that everybody else hates, and just move on with my life, because you understand every argument. You really do.
Yeah, I think it's a person-to-person basis with how you feel about the controversy, and then like how Will decides on that, and how disabled people decide on how they want to carry out their life. It's still a person-to-person thing, because just everybody's different, and everybody's going to feel differently and believe different things. So it just made this book so controversial.
It was really sad that she decided to call them quads, because that's so offensive.
Oh, yeah, that thing.
I would be so mad if, like, I had gone through this horrible accident and I had been going from running around and doing all these things, and now I can't move any part of my body, basically, except for, like, the neck up and my fingers. And now people are deciding it's okay to call me a quad. Thanks. Love it. Great.
Yeah.
Perfect name for me. Freaking love it.
That review of that same guy talks about that too. He's like, that's really freaking an really awful word. I can't think of the word. What am I trying to say?
Offensive.
Like, it's not offensive, but like
Derogatory.
derogatory.
Yeah.
That was what I was trying to say. It's a really derogatory term, and like that's the word she uses. And like everyone uses it in the book. Like the
Literally.
people on that website use it to each other, and she's just like, no.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. I guess I'm the type of person that, like, I'm able to recognize problematic aspects. Like, I agree with every single problematic thing we're talking about, but I try not let it disturb my entertainment of it. Like, I'm not saying I'm trying to use, like, problematic things as, like, entertainment, but I'm saying, like, I try and, when I think about this book, I think about what's wrong with it, and I will speak out about it, and I'm, like, the first person to say, like, no, this is wrong. But, like, I don't want to, like, outright trash everything I liked about it for that. So, like, when I'm sitting here and I'm like, wow, I really, really like that scene with Will and Louisa when they're sitting outside of the car, like, I still hold on to that feeling while also recognizing where everything's problematic. And I think the one thing that, like, when everyone's talking about how problematic things are, like, the thing that I really, really appreciate about this book, they're talking about, like, everyone's like, it's such a terrible representation of disabled people, which I agree with.
But at least it's a representation at all, because
that's one thing
book ever is out there and is like super popular right now and has become a movie that it's about anything about like that. So it's not like, even though some of the facts were incorrect and some of it was offensive, at least it has people thinking about it.
Yeah,
like,
my hope is that, like,
from that point of view.
My hope is that, you know, an author in the future is going to take what she started and fix the problems with it, and then create a better representation of disabled people, because this is such an issue that needs to be talked about. But, like, also, I guess I was super ignorant about disabled people going into this. Like, you know, it's not something my school ever really talked about. You know, I knew people used wheelchairs, and it had to do with, like, nerd out. Like, I really just did not know much about disabled people before reading it, which also could attribute to the fact that I didn't pick up on a lot of problematic aspects while reading it, and it was all discussion afterwards. But throughout the book, when Louisa is in those online chat rooms and stuff, and seeing pictures of disabled people playing tennis and going skydiving and going to special resorts, I'm like, I had no idea there was this much support for people in this situation. And so that's, like, I took away one positive thing from the book, it's that. And, like, I think that people are so quick to judge this book and say it's a terrible representation when it actually offered me some kind of knowledge that I didn't know about. And I highly doubt I'm the only person on the planet that has read this book that learned something about disabled people. And so, like Sierra said, like, I think, you know, it's not the best representation, but it's bringing awareness to, you know, people in this situation. And, like, I choose to appreciate that while also pointing out the issues that I don't
The
like.
one thing that I want to say is that, like, so the reason in my opinion, it's like, okay, this book has a lot of issues. This book brought up a lot of issues. And like in doing so, in making a book that was problematic and got big and then was also a really controversial book, in doing so it brought up this conversation where like people are now more aware. They maybe learned a few things about disabled body people or about like what is derogatory or like what was wrong with the book, even if you know what I mean. So it brought up this whole conversation, which is a good thing, but like it's also still I don't know, it's still problematic.
No, it's still problematic.
Yeah, it's
absolutely.
weird. But like I also have had this conversation with like there's that book Cut Both Ways, which is about a bisexual character, but he never calls himself bisexual, which is problematic because there's bi erasure all over the freaking place, and he's a cheater. And so people were really mad about that book because it's a book about a bisexual person who's like bisexuality is known as the like floozies of the fucking world because they can't keep it in their pants, and then of course he's a cheater. But like just because he's a cheater doesn't mean all bisexual people are a cheater, and there are definitely cheaters who are also bisexual, so why can't we have a book about it?
Yeah.
And so there's also like that whole thing where like, yeah, Will is a problematic character because he chooses to die and he thinks that there's no way to live as a disabled person when obviously there is, and there could have been things that he could have done to, you know, to be mentally healthier. But that doesn't mean that there aren't people who feel the way that Will feels.
Yeah, I think
definitely.
That's like what, like, I just feel like this book was like set up to be this controversial mess. Because no matter what happened, there was going to be a problem. Because also I feel like that's like a big thing is that like people take it as like authors are trying to say that this is like the only way people are, and it's not that, you know, not every disabled person is happy and living their life and doing all of the crazy things that, you know, I previously didn't know they could do. You know, there are people in Will's situation, but like, you know, had Will, you know, Will decided to die at the end. Oh, all disabled people are unhappy. This is a bad representation. Will decides to live. The able-bodied person saves him. This is still a bad representation. You know what I mean? There was no good outcome. It was set up for failure.
Which is like everybody.
Aside though, sorry, Kelly, go ahead.
I know you're good. I just feel like we've come to this point to where people look for controversy in everything they read, which is probably a stretch of me saying that, but I feel like everything is so controversial all the time. Everybody is offended by something all the time, and it's so frustrating because this author is trying to tell one story that she created in her mind of these characters that she created in her mind. That doesn't mean they're exactly like every other person. We could be controversial in saying that Lou, most people would not handle a disabled person the way that she did. Like, not knowing anything about them, I would have freaked out if I was thrown into that situation and probably left. So it could be controversial in the way that she handled the situation.
Right.
Everything is controversial, but it's how you let yourself, I guess, enjoy the book in the moment.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's what I was gonna say. Is that all controversy aside, I still loved reading it at the point in time when I was reading it. Like I read it in like 2 days, and I enjoyed every second of it because I wasn't thinking about all these different perspectives and little itty bitty things that I need to pick at. I was just enjoying it and reading it for entertainment. And like Emma said, I'm not like taking people that are like have disabilities and like for my entertainment. I just enjoyed it at the time. I thought it was great, and then after the fact, looking through it, I mean, yeah, there's so much controversy, but I still enjoyed it. It's not. It doesn't like affect. I don't know. I just feel like we're shitting all over it, and I don't want to shit all over it because I still enjoyed it.
I mean, what did you guys rate it? Because I wasn't even here for that part. Like,
I rated it 4.
I rated it 4.5.
I was 5 out of 5 stars.
I originally rated it a 4, and then I changed my rating to a 2.5.
What was the thing I was going to say? Oh, yeah. I feel like it's also frustrating for me to see all of this controversy because it's so easy for me to read this book and be like, okay, yes, there are people that are not like this, but there are people that are like this, that are disabled and want to die because they are in so much pain. And so it's frustrating when I see people blow things out of proportion and say that she's trying to suggest that everyone is like this because it's common sense to me that this is an accurate representation for someone. You know what I mean? And you know, there's someone out there, like, you know, maybe the little girl in Alabama did read this book and was like, this is how I feel. Someone is going to identify with this book, and there are going to be people that hate it because it's so opposite of their situation. And it's just so annoying to me to see so many people think that it represents only one side of the story when it's like, I can read this and I can know that this is how some people are and it's how some people aren't. And that's why the controversy, I think it's so important that we're talking about this controversy, because it's so important to recognize that this isn't how everyone feels, but it's also so difficult to, how can she write a book that represents both sides of the situation? You know what I mean?
I think the main issue that I really found with it is that, like, we're talking about all of the controversy surrounding Will and how Will felt and what Will did and all this stuff, but this book wasn't about him.
Exactly. That's the problem with it.
She wrote it about Louisa. It was all about how Will changed Louisa, how Will's experience moved Louisa through her experience. And I'm not saying that Louisa's story isn't important, because it certainly is. And we didn't even talk about that, which we should have. But, I think it's really important that Louisa went through a sexual assault, which I don't even know if they ever adamantly say that it was rape, but that's what it seems like. Yeah. And, it's important that she went through that, and it's important to see, that her experiences throughout her life as time goes on changed how she dealt with that and blah, blah, blah. But, we were using Will's very important story to move through her story, and so why wasn't this book about him? Because it could have been just as amazing. Look at how much time we spent talking about Will's story when it wasn't even about him. Why was it about her?
Yeah. I think
that's why I really have an issue with it. It's not about it's definitely a problematic book, obviously, but those aren't really the problematic things that I found that made me change my rating. It was that with all the controversy surrounding the story of Will, this book still wasn't about him, and that kind of is annoying. Why?
I think another reason it's such a big deal right now is because it's one of those books that blew up, and people that don't usually read are reading it. You know how we get those books that no one ever reads in their entire life. I had all these people that used to make fun of me in high school, and now all of them are posting pictures of Me Before You because now they're reading it.
Like The Fault in Our Stars.
Right. So it's just one of those things that there's so much problems with it because there's so many people reading it now, and it's just a really big thing.
I agree with you, Sierra. I think the sequel should have been the whole story from Will's perspective, because it works. It's successful. A lot of authors have done it. You know what I mean? I bet you that book would sell so much better than the sequel is, because I don't know a single person that has any motivation to read the sequel. But I think if it was written from Will's perspective, it wouldn't necessarily have corrected the biggest issue that Cassie has with it, but I think I would have felt better knowing that his story was told. And I think that also would have been a really great opportunity for Jojo Moyes to do more research and get a lot of the things that she did in the first book wrong right, and learn from her mistakes. But she just kind of continued on the same path. And I think just having Will's story being told would have made a big difference into how I perceive the outside controversy surrounding it.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with After You, just because of Will's story. So as far as Louisa goes, I think it would be really interesting. I am echoing.
Yeah.
Yeah, really bad.
Is it Emma?
Yeah.
It's always Emma. Let's see if I can find. No, not happening.
Go for it.
Okay, the main issue that I have with After You, because I would love to read Luisa's story of After You, because life goes on, right? You have a love of your life, and he passes away in whatever shape or form, and life does go on, so I think it would be really interesting to read her story. But, I actively have a problem with the fact that Me Before You was about Louisa, so I don't want to support and read After You. So that's where I stand on that.
I totally agree with that.
It's almost 2, and we really should wrap it up. So do we want to end on, I don't know, do we want to end on talking about the fact that Louisa was raped, or do we want to, really wrap it up?
I don't think we have, if you guys have to leave it too, we don't really have time for that.
Does anyone just want to go over the, does anyone want to like offer a quick thought on it at least? Because I'm really interested just to hear like at least a general thought. Because there were a lot of people that said that it was unnecessary and just thrown in. So I'm just like curious as to like what your guys' perception of the inclusion was.
Oh, I think it was totally necessary. I think it was like a huge part of how she is as a person. Like we said earlier, it's the whole reason why she dresses the way she is and why she's so shy, and everything about her is because of what happened to her when she was younger. Because I don't understand why people think they just like to shit on everything, and it just frustrates me.
Not to mention the fact that, like, what is the ratio? 1 in 4 women has been sexually assaulted in the U.S., so why can't it be thrown in? Like, because it happens. Like, I mean, even if it is just the fact that, 4 years ago I was sexually assaulted in one way or another, and it's just the 1 out of 4 girls that are in the book, that in and of itself is an accurate representation of real life. So why can't it be thrown in? Even though in this particular situation, I think it was really important to Louisa's story and Louisa's plot, but like also it should be stated over and over again. Like when you have a whole bunch of girls in a book, the likelihood of one of them having been sexually assaulted is unfortunately very high. So
and it never comes up ever. So
it's either the story or no story.
As somebody, this was my okay. We read a lot of YA books. Obviously, a lot of us are mainly YA readers, just by dabbling in adults, obviously. Me personally, I don't know if I've just been like randomly picking books that don't really have it. The only exposure I've had to sexual assault in books is through really, really vague attempts that don't even amount to anything, like Divergent and whatnot. And so this was my first clear-cut representation of this person was sexually assaulted. So it was really important for me to have that because now I have so much more motivation to find other stories to compare it to. And I agree, I don't think it was thrown in at all. I think it was really realistic. And I think the way it was portrayed was really realistic because it wasn't a story about her sexual assault either. She was just a girl who was sexually assaulted, and that's part of her past, and it has affected who she is now. You know, this wasn't the story of how Louisa got assaulted. This was how she is as an adult after that experience. And so I just think it was really important. Still pissed was cut out of the movie. And I don't like it when people think that it was just thrown in there because I think it just has so much to do. It's like saying that, oh, Will's backstory on him being an adrenaline junkie isn't important. Like that's that's a huge part as to why he's so depressed. You know, if he was a librarian or, you know, he didn't really have all of those life experiences, maybe he would have been more content with his situation. We don't know, but it was his past. And it's so terrible to say that, you know, their past don't matter when it's totally like who they are now and how they respond to certain situations.
Just want to say, I'm a librarian and I have had life experiences, and I would still care.
I'm just saying, like, you know, he could have been like he could have been anything, but I feel like the fact that he wasn't able to do all of those things has a huge impact on why he was so depressed. Like, you know, he says all the time, like, he doesn't want to look at pictures of himself because he can't do those things anymore. I just think that, like, you know, he could have been doing anything other than that, and maybe the story would have been totally different. That's what I'm saying. It's just, like, the past of these two characters were so crucial to the story, and
because
I think it's so
ridiculous.
ridiculous.
Is crucial.
Exactly, and I think it's ridiculous to say that, like, something as life-altering as a sexual assault isn't important, is, like, preposterous to me.
I want to tell you that Easy by Tamara Weber, it's not young adult, it's new adult, but it talks about sexual assault. And
Thank
one
you
of my
for the
favorites, because there's a boy in that tells her repeatedly whenever she starts to get emotional about her sexual assault, he always tells her it's not your fault. And I love that they have a boy telling her that, and it's just, it's a really good one, so I think you should, and it's like 200 pages. It's really tiny.
Nice. There's also Speak by Lori.
Yes, I hear Speak is really
Fan of
great.
the books recommended
Really
that
great.
on the side too.
Love it.
I kind of agree what everybody else is saying about it, that it is important that they had that aspect because, like everybody is also saying, it happens, and it's something that happens, and it's really stupid that they cut that out of the movie and made her, like, sad when they were at the castle that she's, like, afraid of heights. They made it that she was afraid of heights, but no.
That's not the freaking same thing. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Not even
And, like, I don't think that it was just thrown in there because again, it's something that happens, and this is just a fictional book, so why can't she put something that is important in there? So kind of agree with what everybody else is saying.
Anything else before we go?
I think we're Gucci.
Okay, we're gonna leave. We're gonna say bye. Bye.
Hi, thanks for watching.